Every time you charge an electric vehicle, install a solar panel, or use a smartphone, you're relying on silver often without knowing it. But here's what almost no one sees. Before that silver reaches your device, there's a very high chance it passed through a Chinese refinery. In fact, China refines nearly 30% of the world's newly mined silver, more than any other country, and controls an even larger share of recycled silver processing. This dominance isn't accidental. It's the result of 2 decades of strategic industrial policy, massive infrastructure investment, and tight regulatory control over outbound shipments. And now, in 2026, Beijing is quietly tightening export licensing for refined silver, not with loud announcements, but through administrative delays, documentation hurdles, and selective approvals. The effect: global manufacturers from German solar firms to U.S. semiconductor plants are suddenly facing delivery bottlenecks, price spikes, and supply uncertainty. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how China built this chokehold, why it matters far beyond commodity markets, and what it signals about the future of critical mineral supply chains in an era of economic fragmentation. To appreciate China's role, we must first understand what refining actually means. Raw silver rarely comes out of the ground in pure form. It's typically extracted as a byproduct of copper, lead, or zinc mining mixed with other metals, sulfides, and impurities. Turning that ore into 99.99% pure silver suitable for electronics requires complex hydrometallurgical processes: leaching, precipitation, electrolysis, and final casting into bars or granules. This isn't just chemistry, it's capital-intensive, energy-heavy, and environmentally sensitive. Over the past 20 years, while Western nations shuttered refineries due to rising labor costs, environmental regulations, and declining domestic mining, China did the opposite. It consolidated small smelters into mega-facilities, invested billions in cleaner technologies, and integrated refining into its broader non-ferrous metals strategy. Today, companies like Jiangxi Copper, Zhejiang Mining, and Yunnan Copper operate some of the largest and most efficient silver refineries on Earth, processing not only domestic output but also imported concentrates from Peru, Mexico, and Australia. The numbers are striking. According to the U.S. Geological Survey (USGS) and the Silver Institute, China refined approximately 4,800 metric tons of silver in 2024, roughly 29% of global refined production. But that figure understates its true influence. When it comes to recycled silver, the kind recovered from end-of-life electronics, industrial scrap, and photographic waste, China's share climbs to over 40%. Why? Because it has built the world's most extensive e-waste collection and processing network, often sourcing discarded circuit boards and photovoltaic panels from Europe and North America, then extracting silver at scale. This dual-stream dominance, primary and secondary, gives Beijing unprecedented leverage over physical availability. Unlike paper markets like COMEX, where prices are set by futures traders, the real economy runs on physical metal. And if that metal flows through a handful of Chinese ports under state-influenced oversight, the entire supply chain becomes vulnerable to policy shifts. Those shifts are already underway. In late 2024, China's Ministry of Commerce introduced new enhanced review procedures for exports of refined silver and silver-containing intermediates. On paper, these rules aim to prevent illegal mining, ensure environmental compliance, and align with national resource security goals. In practice, they've created a de facto licensing system. Exporters must now submit detailed end-user declarations, prove downstream application legitimacy, and sometimes wait weeks for approval, even for long-standing customers. Crucially, there's no public list of approved or denied applications. Decisions are made case by case, often without explanation. This opacity serves a strategic purpose. It allows China to prioritize domestic industries like its booming EV and solar sectors while subtly restricting supply to foreign competitors. For example, during Q1 2025, European photovoltaic manufacturers reported a 22% increase in lead times for silver paste deliveries, directly tied to delays in Chinese refined silver exports. According to data from Bloomberg NEF and the European Photovoltaic Industry Association, this isn't happening in isolation. China's approach mirrors its playbook with other critical minerals, rare earths, graphite, gallium, where export controls have been used as both economic and geopolitical tools. Silver may not be as headline-grabbing as neodymium, but its role in clean energy makes it strategically vital. A single utility-scale solar farm can use over 5 million ounces of silver in its photovoltaic cells. With China accounting for over 80% of global solar panel production, it makes sense for Beijing to ensure its own manufacturers get first access to refined silver, especially as global demand surges. The International Energy Agency, IEA, projects silver demand for renewables alone will reach 250 million ounces annually by 2030, up from 120 million in 2023. If China controls the refining bottleneck, it effectively controls the pace and cost of the energy transition outside its borders. Western nations are scrambling to respond, but catching up won't be easy. The U.S. has only two major primary silver refineries, Hecla's facility in Idaho and a plant operated by Asahi Refining in Utah. Combined, they process less than 5% of global supply. Europe relies heavily on Germany's Heraeus and Switzerland's Mettler, but both depend on imported feedstock, much of it ultimately sourced from Chinese processed material. Attempts to reshore refining capacity face steep hurdles. Permitting can take 5 to 7 years. Skilled metallurgists are in short supply, and the economics are marginal without government subsidies. The U.S. Defense Production Act now includes silver as a critical material, unlocking funding for domestic processing, but scaling will take years. Meanwhile, Canada and Australia are investing in midstream capabilities, yet they still ship concentrates to China for final refining due to cost and efficiency gaps. The market impact is already visible. In early 2025, the premium for physical silver over COMEX futures widened to $1.20 per ounce, the highest level since 2011, signaling tightness in deliverable metal. At the same time, London good delivery bar inventories held outside China fell to a 15-year low, according to the London Bullion Market Association (LBMA). These aren't speculative moves. They reflect real-world friction in moving metal across borders. Traders report increasing difficulty sourcing large volumes of 99.99% pure silver for industrial contracts, forcing buyers to accept lower grades or pay significant premiums. For industries operating on razor-thin margins like solar panel assembly, this translates directly into higher costs and delayed projects. Critically, China's dominance isn't just about volume, it's about integration. Chinese refineries don't just produce silver. They embed it into downstream products within the same industrial ecosystem. Jiangxi Copper, for instance, supplies refined silver directly to domestic silver paste producers like Daeju and DuPont China, who then sell to solar giants like Jinkosolar and Longyi. This vertical linkage minimizes logistics, reduces exposure to export controls, and ensures quality consistency. In contrast, a U.S. solar manufacturer might source silver from a Swiss refiner, which bought concentrate from a Chilean mine, creating a fragmented, multi-jurisdictional chain vulnerable to disruption at every node. China's model is resilient by design. The West's is efficient until it isn't. What does this mean for you? If you invest in clean energy stocks, own an EV, or rely on stable electronics prices, China's refining grip affects your wallet. A 10% increase in silver costs can raise the price of a solar panel by 2 to 3%, slowing adoption. In semiconductors, silver is used in advanced packaging. Shortages could delay next-gen chips. Even jewelry and medical devices sectors often overlooked in commodity discussions face input volatility. And because silver recycling rates remain low under 25% for electronics, the system can't quickly rebalance through scrap recovery. The bottleneck is structural, not cyclical. Looking ahead, three scenarios emerge. First, China could formalize its export controls, listing silver as a restricted export under its updated catalog of technologies prohibited or restricted from export, similar to what it did with gallium and germanium in 2023. Second, it might maintain the current soft control regime, no outright bans, but enough friction to steer supply domestically. Third, geopolitical tensions could trigger reciprocal measures, such as U.S. restrictions on technology exports to Chinese refiners, escalating into a full-blown trade dispute over critical minerals. Any of these paths would accelerate efforts to diversify refining capacity, but at enormous cost and time for now. The quiet reality is this: the world's most indispensable industrial metal flows through a funnel controlled by one nation. That wasn't inevitable, it was engineered. And as clean energy demand soars, this chokehold will only tighten. Understanding it isn't about fear. It's about clarity in a world where supply chains are the new front lines of economic strategy. If you want to see how global systems really work beyond headlines and hype, subscribe to US Silver Market. We deliver deep, fact-based analysis of the forces shaping your financial future with zero speculation and full transparency. Because in today's world, knowing where your resources come from is the first step to securing your place in it.